Hey friends, if you enjoy my videos, please consider clicking subscribe. If you're new to YouTube or not familiar with it, it does not cost anything to subscribe. It's not like a magazine subscription where you have to pay for it. It does help my channel grow, and it would make me very happy. Does that count? I hope it counts because I love all of you guys. I feel like I'm getting to know you so well in the comments section. And that's the highlight of my day, is to read comments. I'm not kidding. I love it. Well, here we go with some flip, upcycle, and repurpose for spring and Easter. And, you know, it's going to involve a lot of bunnies. You already know how I love rabbits, so just get ready for a lot of rabbits. The wood pennant. I found this little wood pennant, which was 4 triangular pieces already strung on a piece of jute with a tassel, and I got the whole set for $1.99, and they were marked $1.99 each on the back of those from Hobby Lobby. Well, I found images on Pinterest, and by the way, I love those little sliding cutters. I have 2 different ones, and I noticed now that Pop Shelf has them. Super convenient. It's got a little teeny tiny blade on that sliding part, and you can make perfect little cuts. It's great. Okay, so I decided which of the images. There were 9 on the page that printed out all together, and when I separated them, I decided which ones I want, and I am using glue stick. Lately, I'm enjoying the way that glue stick holds pretty darn strong, but does not wrinkle up like Mod Podge sometimes will, or as Mod Podge does every single time with me, but I don't always mind the wrinkles. I did take some plaster chalk paint and drag it across so that it would look, you know, a little more like whitewashed kind of wood. I wanted some of the wood to still show, but I decided to add it up here to the springtime extravaganza, where there is just an abundance of bunnies and floral and lamb's ear and all manner of things. But I guess my brain just loves it that way. I love to see a lot of stuff, and I mean, I try to make it look coordinated and interesting, but I love to see things all grouped together with coordinating colors and interesting things for your eyes to explore. Well, that was a lot of fun for $1.99 plus my printouts. Great project. This painted bowl, I saw an image on Pinterest, and that was my inspiration. I've had this bowl, I have no idea how many years ago, and it's cracked and faded because I use it for all kinds of decor and just usefulness. I'll throw fruit in it sometimes in the kitchen. But one of my boys put it through the dishwasher, and really that bleached it out like crazy. Maybe that's a method we need to remember in the future. If you want one to look real bleached out, then put it right in that dishwasher. So it was practically dry. Do you see me rubbing soap? I have a bar of hand-poured soap that, I don't know, I like the smell of it. And after I put the soap on, then I went over it with, I think that color might be called Blue Lagoon chalk paint. It's a pretty old bottle. I don't even know if they make that color anymore. And I wasn't patient enough to wait till it dried, so I realized that it wasn't going to do a good distressing job with a wet wipe. So I just came around with a dry paper towel and then that little sanding sponge, and I love the way it turned out. It looks so interesting to me. Now, I chose that aqua color because I call it my lifetime favorite color. I'm really enjoying pink this year, and green is a really good color. But that turquoise and aqua blue, when I was a teenager in my mama's house, my room, she let me paint it aqua, and it was beautiful. And I've just always loved it. Prom dresses, aqua. Favorite color, aqua. Clothing, aqua. Love it, love it, love it. Just look at that. You can see the wood coming through, and everywhere I rubbed that soap, it distressed off just marvelously. And in fact, the chalk paint doesn't even stick very well when you paint it on top of that soap, which is that immediately gives you a good idea of what it's going to look like. Now I'm calling this a cutting board, but it's totally not. I found it for $2. It's a grill scraper. It still had the tag on it that said grill scraper, but I felt like it looked like a cutting board. So I just, you can call things whatever you want to. When they cross your threshold and come into your house, they now belong to you. You can call it whatever you want to. I did go over it with antique wax to darken it up. I wanted it to look a little bit more rich than that raw wood. And dry brushing means get very, very little paint and drag it across enough times so that you get just a kind of a stained wood effect. If you don't want to soak it in, I mean, you could just soak it in and wipe it back off. You could do that, or you could just dry brush it on until you get an interesting look, and that's what I've done. In addition to that, there's my watered down elephant gray chalk paint in the seasoning. It's an empty garlic seasoning jar, bottle, plastic thing, and that's what I keep it in because I find myself doing this weathered effect a good bit. Well, I just really loved that. I thought that was fantastic. And I did wipe it back down, and it's still damp as a pair of 12-year-old sweaty tennis shoes. It's damp, but it didn't seem to matter because I was too eager to, I thought it was going to be so cute. So I took one of those little printouts that I had printed out before. You can see on the side there, I'm going ahead and overlapping and showing you where I put it above my kitchen sink. And those glue sticks, they're just school children's glue sticks, and they're doing great. Well, you see, I had some really cute little white ribbon. I forget now what the ribbon came off of, but I always throw stuff like that in a little basket or a bowl, and then I prowl through it when I need some extra embellishment. I did put little lavender twigs in there too. Well, here we go with the terracotta pots, not terracotta cots like I said in the thrift video. That was hilarious. I totally didn't mean to say that. Okay, remember that little thing that I said looked like a dog dish and I was going to turn it into a planter? Well, here it is. And I wanted to put the little wood bead accents on the side, but the side was too wimpy. It wasn't thick enough, so I took some little balsa wood sticks and glued. All of this is hot glue. I mean, it's not going to hold up to some kind of heavy-duty military operation. It's decor, but the hot glue, I promise, sticks on very well. So I made it wide enough that it was wider than the little wood button size, and then went over the whole thing with the dark antique wax. Then I used the spackling, rubbed it in between the buttons. And you notice that spackling is pink, but it turns white when it's dry. Then I rubbed spackling onto the terracotta pots to give it some thickness. I started to just do chalk paint, and that would have been fine too, but my hands were already kind of, knuckle deep in that spackling, so I just used it, and I used the moss green, appropriately named, moss green chalk paint, and also dabbed on some antique wax very sparingly and dryly, just to make it kind of look like potting soil dirt sticking to it a little bit, Now, I used a garland from Hobby Lobby. I grew up, in the 70s, so Hobby Lobby has those garlands. A $13.99 garland cut into 1-foot pieces gives you a lot more little small pieces. That's $7 for oh goodness, I guess if it's a 6-foot thing, it's 6 little pieces for $7, and that's cheaper than you can get individual little bushes. And I liked that very traily. I liked the way it looked trailing down. All right, my raggy quilt lives on, and this time I am making little eggs out of it. You see how, don't be sad that I've cut up a vintage quilt, because it is too big. It's too much of a disaster to salvage in any way except to use it in this way. I saw these little eggs on Pinterest, and I was like, oh, I've got to make some of these little pink ones. And I made a pattern by folding paper in half and cutting it till I got it the right shape. And then I used a paper plate to make it a little bit thicker and cut it out and placed it over my quilt pieces. And then I used just a linen type solid color back because there's really no need for me. I didn't think there was a need to do. And you could sew this, but I didn't. I just used hot glue because, you know, I was sitting there and I had my camera set up, and I've never put my camera set up in my sewing room with the sewing machine going. I've never tried that before, and I will someday, but not this day. Do you see how after I glued it all together and stuffed it and sealed it, that I took the sanding block to the edges and frazzled it up and made it look very ragged and worn? I love that. And the little jute just made a cute touch. Well, the raggy quilt eggs are taking a turn in the painted wooden bowl. They told me they liked it in there, so that's where they still are. And my granddaughters have played with those speckled plastic eggs from Hobby Lobby, and heaven knows where they are all over my house. They got the best use out of those plastic eggs. I should have taken a picture of them doing that so that I could include it. Maybe I'll look for a picture to see if I did take one. Look, isn't that lavender so sweet tied onto there? That's a 97-cent bunch of lavender from Walmart, and you just take little bits of it. I mean, one bunch will do you a long time. It's very economical. Now, this wood box is very special to me because my precious daddy made this box. He's made me several things and several boxes. Okay, first thing I'm doing, rubbing over it with the soap. I'm going by the Pinterest picture and using that color that is something I mixed that's kind of an aqua color. It's the same color I used on the painted bowl. And don't feel sad that I'm doing it. We've used this box for all kinds of things. My husband has used it in reenactment. I don't guess he can do that anymore because it will not look like the late 1700s anymore. But isn't it adorable? I had one bunny transfer that I really wanted to use on something besides a black background because I've done that a lot. Look, my daddy assigns all his pieces on the bottom. I love that. I did use one of those little pop shelf stamps to make a very subtle, slight little floral pattern that was going to go on behind my bunny transfer. I didn't paint heavily on that box. I just did one coat and didn't even worry about getting it solidly painted on there because I knew that I would be distressing it back off. And I rubbed my transfer on. Isn't it cute? It's so good. And the way that box is built, it has a beautiful little hinged lid and a carry handle, but I put little bits of greenery and a tiny bit of that pink floral sticking out through there, and I wanted to be able to see some of that cedar coming through because it originally, of course, is a cedar box. My daddy is able to make some beautiful pieces out of cedar, and it's taking a turn in the foyer on my little desk. I started to say desk. I paid $5 for that little thing. It was the ugliest thing you've ever seen, and I painted it black, and it's tiny and it's perfect for my foyer. I'm calling this little fence art because I had no idea what else to call it. Maybe it could be called a mini palette. You see that over there? I got it at a thrift store for $1, and I'm thinking I've seen it maybe at Dollar General or Dollar Tree, Hobby Lobby, somewhere. Now I'm cutting a piece of foam board. By the way, your little blade won't cut all the way through it, but if you cut the top side and then pop it and make a crease for the back side in exactly the right spot and then turn it over and cut the back side, that works great. All right, I decided I wanted the palette wood to look weathered. So here we go with the watered down elephant gray and a little bit of this Waverly antique wax in the dark. And I just kept on till it looked as old and grungy as I thought it should. And I did use a glue stick on that so that it would not have wrinkles and be flatter. Maybe not the best choice for putting out on the front porch because I don't know how it's going to hold up to the weather, but for right now it is outside. And then I went back and pounced a little bit of the antique wax very sparingly around the edges and in the corners to just tie it all together. And then that foam on the edge was white, and I didn't want it to look so white. I went over it to make it look darker. I have this grapevine wreath on my front porch, and seasonally I just add things to that grapevine wreath. I might, like at Christmas, I had a regular evergreen wreath just layered up, a little bit smaller than the grapevine wreath in it. And I'll do that throughout the season. Sometimes I have a beautiful wood monogram that has mine and Ben's initials, and I'll hang it on top of the grapevine wreath. It's just kind of my anchor for whatever seasonal things that I have. Now, this fence board is salvaged from my little granddaughters were given a double tree house, and some of the boards ended up at my house, were not needed in its new location at my daughter's house. So I salvaged the boards. Oh, look, there they are in their little tree houses. It's like twin tree houses with a bridge between them. It's amazing. And it was given to my daughter for the children. Well, here I go again with glue stick, but you know what? On rough wood, I used an entire glue stick on that rough wood, but I'm still kind of glad that I did it because it was easy to do and kind of instantly dried. And then I did take the antique wax and pounce it around and make it look a little bit more grungy and a little less brand new. But that vintage image, I found it on Pinterest. Just look online till you find something you like and print it out. This is all you have to do. So that was a practically free, whatever it cost me to print that printout and whatever that one glue stick cost. I got a big, huge, like a wholesale kind of bundle of glue sticks. So, I wasn't worried about it. Do you notice how I put the lamb about midway up that plank? It was so that it would still have room beneath it for some other decor. I knew that I would be layering it and allowing it to be staged behind something else. It would also be cute hanging on a wall. And if you did that, you could wrap some jute around the top and put little sprigs of flowers up in there under the jute. That would be very cute. That lamb is so sweet. Look how it's smiling. It's precious. That's the most sweet little Easter lamb from World War II era. All right, this framed beadboard. I bought this frame at a yard sale, maybe 10 years ago. Paid $1 for it because it was some kind of ocean scene with a lighthouse, with it was glued to the glass. Well, you can see that I put chalkboard paint over it. And for 10 years, me and all my friends that know me have borrowed this thing and wagged it around. And it lasted 10 years before it broke. But now that it's broken, let's do something different in this frame. So 10 years worth of nails and hot gluing it back in when it seemed loose. See that crazy stuff? It was just terrible. Well, I did put watered down antique wax on it. Oh, I'm peeling that off now. Can you see how crazy that was? That just goes to show. I used it in every kind of event and nobody knew I did it. Okay, the leftover beadboard pieces are from doing the ceilings of my bathrooms and my laundry room. And it has tongue and groove system that I put it together, cut all the pieces to the correct size, nailed it in. little tiny skinny wire nails. And then I did use the antique wax, still watered down, and dragged it over this I don't know what kind of odd material, plastery type material that was over the wood frame, and the embellishments are just crackling off and just looking terrible, just like I like them, crumbling and vintage and evermore. And there sits the duck, the swan, the quilted eggs, and I put a little lamb's ear wreath, and it's hanging from jute, and that's an old-fashioned, old-timey clothespin that I have hot glued to the middle up there. Now anyone can do this. If you find beautiful frames and you do not want to go pay a high price for prints, just pick some out and print them. Now I did send these to Staples because I've got some toner for my laser printer at home, but sometimes I would rather put it on a little bit thicker paper, and I did print these out onto cardstock, or I had Staples do it for me. Less than $1 per print. That's pretty cheap, especially if you're paying only $1.99 and 50 cents each for the other frames. I love these old Audubon and historical educational looking prints. I love them. You can see I am deciding how big each one should be by using that cardboard backer that came out of the frame. And then after I make my little marks on my pages, I just take it to my handy dandy little cutter and I make sure that it's fitting in there like it should. And that is really, it's my best system for getting a nice clean straight cut edge. And those just fit very easily. By the way, only one of those frames had a glass. It was one of the smaller ones, and I decided just to take the glass out of the other two, or that one, to match the other two so that they would all look the same. That's in my bathroom, and I love that. I'll probably let that remain there for many months, because even though it's very springtime with the nest and eggs, it still looks very appropriate to me. And those floral things are kind of, they work all year too. It's got Spanish moss and hydrangea and little, I don't know, Billy button looking, I'm not sure, is that what they're called? Those little green pom-pom ball looking floral pieces. Well, here we are again at the end of a video, and I just want to thank everyone for watching and for liking and subscribing and leaving me comments. You just don't know what it means to me. I appreciate it so much. I hope God blesses every one of you.